Did Obama-era intel officials abuse their power? Big question this morning as new reports and the long-awaited IG report center on a former FBI official. So welcome to our coverage here on a Friday. Not sure what we were going to get today. Did not expect that. So welcome here.
Well, we made it this far. Good morning, everyone. I'm Sandra Smith. DOJ watchdog Michael Horowitz preparing to release his report on the origins of the 2016 Russia probe on December 9th. It will outline whether the FBI abused its power with FISA warrants targeting the Trump campaign. Meanwhile, there are new reports that a former FBI lawyer is under investigation, accused of altering a document connected to the investigation.
So we here at Fox still working to confirm a lot of the information, but we do know on December 9th, the report will be released. On December 11th, that's the Wednesday morning, we will have hearings live here in America's Newsroom, and the president sounding off on a lot of that just a few moments ago.
You're going to see, I predict, will be perhaps the biggest scandal in the history of our country, political scandal. I think you're going to see things that are going to be incredible if it's done right. And I purposely stay out. I tell Bill Barr to handle everything. You have a FISA report coming out, which the word is, it's historic. That's what the word is. That's what I hear. You're dealing at the highest levels of government. They were spying on my campaign. This is my opinion. I said it a long time ago. Personally, I think it goes all the way.
Well, the latest developments coming after that marathon week of public impeachment hearings with 9 witnesses testifying over just the last over a 3-day period.
So let's get to it via live coverage now with Jillian Turner on the impeachment angle, Robert Ray analysis of where America's headed next. But we begin with Griff Jenkins live there in Washington, D.C. Griff, good morning.
Good morning, Bill. I just got off the phone with Horowitz's office. They are declining to comment. And remember, we will all see his report on FISA abuse on December 9th. But according to this Washington Post article that started all of it, an FBI employee modified a FISA document and falsely stated that he had documentation to back up a claim made in a FISA application. Here is how the Post puts it. The Justice Department Inspector General has found evidence that an FBI employee may have altered a document connected to court-approved surveillance of a former Trump campaign advisor, but has concluded that the conduct did not affect the overall validity of the surveillance application. That campaign advisor is believed to be Carter Page, who, you recall, the FBI obtained a renewed surveillance warrant on. He is speaking out this morning with Maria.
Maria, listen, they have just been putting false information out there to the media, the Democrats and their allies in Washington in the media, constantly pushing lies after lies. There has been a continued cover-up to this very day. We still don't have the truth, but hopefully we'll get that soon.
Now, it's unclear exactly what the employee changed to the document, and it's possible this employee's conduct will find its way into prosecutor John Durham's criminal probe into the origins of the Russia probe. The Post also reporting that FBI employee has since been forced out of the Bureau. All of this as former Attorney General Jeff Sessions is weighing in.
I support Attorney General Barr's efforts to investigate the predicate, the foundation that was laid to start this investigation. I'm proud that the system is beginning to focus on that, and I'm confident that we'll get to the bottom of it.
And Horowitz will also testify before the Senate Judiciary Committee 2 days after releasing that December 9 report. Bill?
Thank you, Griff. Griff Jenkins in Washington. More later with you. Here's Sandra now.
All right, well, those public impeachment hearings for the week at least are over. Now the question is, what happens next? We're told Democrats on the House Judiciary Committee could draw up 4 articles of impeachment against the president as early as next month. Meanwhile, the White House and Senate Republicans are strategizing over the timeline for a potential Senate trial. Here's a look back at some key moments from the week.
Getting caught is no defense, not to a violation of the Constitution or to a violation of his oath of office.
Now that the whistleblower has successfully kick-started impeachment, he has disappeared from the story, as if the Democrats put the whistleblower in their own witness protection program.
I've been advised not to provide any specifics on who I've spoken to inside the intelligence community.
You can plead the fifth, but you're here to answer questions, and you're here under subpoena.
Did any of them suggest to you in any way that they thought the president was involved with bribery or any such thing associated with that?
Not that I'm aware of, Congressman.
Any evidence of treason?
No, ma'am.
No evidence of treason.
Was there a quid pro quo? As I testified previously, with regard to the requested White House call and the White House meeting, the answer is yes.
You said to the President of the United States, what do you want from Ukraine? The President, I want nothing. I want no quid pro quo. Why didn't you put that statement in your opening statement? I think you said you couldn't fit it in.
Jillian Turner picking up our team coverage now. Jillian, good morning.
Good morning, Sandra. So next up, the committee could hold more hearings with yet more witnesses, or it could get straight to work on its report for the Judiciary Committee to begin drafting articles of impeachment. The White House and key Republicans walking away from this week of public hearings believing they've got it in the bag, and they're really eager to move on now to the next phase.
He says if the House moves forward with this sham and they continue to push these fake, illegitimate proceedings onto the American people, then he wants it to go to the Senate and he wants a trial.
The key for Republicans, a Senate trial affords the chance to summon their wish list of witnesses they say Intelligence Chairman Adam Schiff has so far ignored. That list including Hunter Biden, the whistleblower, and Alexandra Chalupa. Now, away from cameras last night, Judiciary Chairman Lindsey Graham telling reporters after his meeting with the White House counsel that the president's attorneys think there's at least a 50-50 chance the House doesn't get the votes to impeach. But if they do, he's playing down expectations that Republicans could muster those 51 votes to dismiss the case before it goes to trial over in the Senate. Now, a trial could ultimately afford the president those very rights Republicans say he's been denied.
We do not have a process where the president's own attorney could have a cross-examination. We do not have due process.
Top Democrats, though, say not so fast. Take a listen.
The Congress has the right to subpoena and inquiry. No, we're not going to wait till the courts decide. So we cannot let their further obstruction of Congress be an impediment to our honoring our oath of office.
Now, this morning, sources are telling Fox News the game plan for the Democrats is to focus on 4 potential articles of impeachment. That's bribery, contempt of Congress, obstruction of justice, and abuse of power. Sandra.
All right, Jillian Turner in Washington for us. Jillian, thanks.
I want to bring in Robert Ray now, former Whitewater Independent Counsel, former federal prosecutor. Morning to you. You heard the president for 50 minutes. You watched the hearings all week long. Where are we right now after 5 days of hearings, Robert?
Well, I think the most recent news is that the counterattack by the White House through the president of the just begun. That happened this morning on your network. So that's a significant development, I think. Where we are is that it looks have concluded regarding the Select Committee on Intelligence, and I imagine that the Democrats now are busy through the House Judiciary Committee with they intend to pursue ultimately with a recommendation to the full House to vote on it, and whether they have a majority or not, I guess, remains to be seen.
Did you hear slam dunk evidence this week that would convince the impeachment, or whether you just take a step back and go for a censure vote?
Well, my impression of what has happened now that this is, in this sense, over. In other words, they have the evidence they're going to have. There's not going to be any more evidence likely. They're going to go with this.
No more witnesses then?
I don't think so. I mean, I think Nancy Pelosi is signaling that they're going to attempt to have witnesses if the matter makes its way over to the United States Senate for trial. But I don't think you're going to see any further witnesses before the House. Now, I could be wrong, but it looks like, they're fully intent on proceeding with this wherever it leads, and beginning when they return from their Thanksgiving recess in the first couple of weeks of December.
That opening comment you made, Robert, is very interesting. This is the first sign of the White House going on offense, essentially, led by the president. Just take you back. Right. Let's start with Brian's question about the aid tied to corruption and how that came up in the hearing. Here's the question and answer a moment ago.
You do say, I wanted to hold up that aid because of corruption, but you also in the phone call...
Reason too. No, right. 2 reasons.
Okay.
For corruption, because it's known, I want to make sure the money is going to be spent properly. But there's another reason that is maybe to me the most important.
Which is?
Why isn't Germany, France, the European Union, why aren't all those countries in Europe, why aren't they paying? Why is it always the United States, the sucker? I got elected on that.
The president has the right to temporarily withhold aid to see what the Ukrainians would do. And Adam Schiff's argument to the contrary, that the only reason he released the aid was because he got caught, is inconsistent with the facts. It was signaled as early in a little noticed part of Mick Mulvaney's press conference that OMB understood that they did not have the authority to retain the aid indefinitely. They could only do so until the end of the fiscal year, which was September 30th of this year.
But you see the defense that he's putting out publicly, and I think your point is well taken about going on offense right now after you're playing on defense. Michael Horowitz, the IG report, what is your expectation now that there's appears to be an inclination toward criminal proceedings with John Durham?
I don't think we know a whole lot about it, but I do think we know some important things that we're going to find out the rest of the story now on December 9th. The first is that it was someone in the process of applying to the FISA court in order to get a warrant to surveil Carter Page. That's significant. This individual was at the FBI. It was a lawyer. There was a document that was altered, and it was relied upon in the FISA application process. That's not an insignificant,
not a small matter.
Error in judgment. That's potentially a criminal act.
Robert Ray, thank you so much. We'll lean on you after Thanksgiving, okay?
Very good.
Come on back.
Happy Thanksgiving.
And to you as well. Coming up here in our program, our headliner today, White House's advisor on impeachment. She is Pam Bondi. She will be our guest in the 10 a.m. Eastern hour. Looking forward to that. Thank you, Robert. Here's Sandra.
Meanwhile, the military responding this morning to a warning from President Trump about stripping Eddie Gallagher's status as a Navy SEAL. Where does that case go next?
Now for Prince Andrew to speak to investigators as his ties to Jeffrey Epstein face even more scrutiny. So then, will he?
And what President Obama is advising Democrats to do and not to do ahead of the 2020 elections. Donna Brazil will join us live next on that.
You heard the questions of President moments ago about 2020. Former President Barack Obama with more advice for those candidates, saying the following, quote, everybody needs to chill out about the candidates, but gin up about the prospect of rallying behind whoever emerges from this process. What about that process? Donna Brazil, former DNC interim chair and a Fox News contributor. How are you?
Baby.
What's wrong?
I feel good.
Oh, okay.
I made you nervous, huh?
Well, I think it's 9 o'clock in the morning. It's not 9 o'clock at night.
Well, I still feel good.
Thank you. What does a purity test mean to you? What's he
It's an
talking
insanity test. It is basically saying the candidates have to be perfect. They don't have to be perfect because they're humans. They're flawed. He's saying, first of all, the president believes we have a good field of Democratic candidates. He believes they are patriots, they share our values, and that we should rally behind the person once the process is over with. I think the purity test issue has gotten a little bit out of hands. I mean, we all share values, but we have different ways to achieve those goals.
Okay, so he also said this, now back on screen. When you listen to the average voter, this is Barack Obama talking, even ones who aren't stalwart Democrats, but who are more independent or low information voters, they don't feel that things are working well, but they're also nervous about changes that might take away what little they have. He's saying don't go too far left. Can you pull back the reins on that, do you think? Or?
You know, I don't look at it like they're going this way. I think, or that way, by the way. I think that our candidates support expanding access to affordable health care. That means that we allow people to enroll. We allow people to expand access and affordability. I want to address this issue about, going too far left. Democrats believe that we need to create opportunity for all. We need to make sure that workers are wealthier, that they have more access to income, that their incomes rise, not just the top 1% continue to see their income rise. I agree with the president that we have to be careful not to go too far. But on the other hand, I also believe that during a Democratic primary, we need to discuss all these issues.
Well, he did admit in that interview that he favors big ideas, and there's some big ideas out there too. Why do you think the ratings were so low the other night for that debate?
Because after watching the hearings all day, I think people decided that they wanted to watch something else. Seriously. I mean, come on.
Simple fatigue?
I mean, politics is politics.
I get it. It was a long day, a long week for everybody. Is there fatigue here? Do you sense a lack of enthusiasm for the
No. This was the 5th presidential debate, not the first. And I think as time wears on, people, I'll put this off. I'm thinking about Thanksgiving. I got to worry about my Christmas gifts, blah, blah, blah. No, it's not fatigue at all. There's a lot of interest in the party. All you got to do is look at the number of donors who are
Last question for you.
Want to get rid of me so early?
Absolutely. And you'd stay all day.
All right.
What do you hear about moderate Democrats talking to Nancy Pelosi about backing off impeachment and going for censure?
I haven't heard that. I know there are people who will always indicate their preference, but I haven't heard those calls directly. But I do know that the House need to figure out what is the prudent next step. We heard a lot of evidence, a lot of testimony. And by the way, I watch a lot of the hearings, and I have to tell you, I came away from it very sad. It's a solemn moment. And I know in the wisdom of many of our leaders on the Capitol Hill, they will treat this as it should be treated.
Do you think censure would be a good off-ramp?
I don't,
yes or no?
I don't have an answer. I really don't. I don't. Bill, I didn't wake up on January 3rd, 2019 and say, I want to impeach the president. I hope my congressperson, blah, blah. I woke up on January 3rd, 2019, very excited about the prospects of seeing Nancy Pelosi lead the country. So I'm not ready to give an opinion.
See what call she makes after Thanksgiving. Come on back. Nice to see you.
Thank you, sir.
You bet.
Always.
Sandra, thanks.
All right, just months before the Iowa caucuses, and Facebook is feeling the heat to limit those political ads on its platform after Google and Twitter made some big changes to theirs. And an entire school district canceling classes. Find out where that is happening, what you need to know.
And crazy Nancy Pelosi, who, by the way, is going to go down as the worst speaker in the history of the House of Representatives. She hasn't done anything. They asked these terrible witnesses yesterday. Again, I don't even know these people. All she's doing is sitting. She's not doing any work for the people. And now it turns out that the whole impeachment thing is a scam.
Gotcha. So,
and now on top of it, now you're starting to get some feedback that the IG report is coming out. And I think that will be
explosive.
The greatest political scandal in the history of our country.
That was President Trump just a bit earlier on Fox and Friends this morning, sounding off on this week's impeachment hearings and the upcoming IG report. The report on the origins of the Russia probe will be released next month. You're looking at December 9th for that. A hearing will follow December 11th. And it comes as Republicans and Democrats strategize their next steps in this whole impeachment process. Congresswoman Debbie Dingell is co-chair of the Democratic Policy and Communications Committee. Congresswoman, good morning. The last time we spoke, it was 3 weeks ago after that vote took place on the rules and regulations and how this whole impeachment process would move forward. You assured the American people then that you would work hard and endlessly to make sure the president saw a fair process. What did you see play out this week? What is your decision on whether or not the president committed an impeachable offense?
So we're still in the process. We had 2 weeks of very open and transparent hearings, of which there were a number of things that I found deeply disturbing. But here are the next steps. We'll have to decide if they're going to, not me, but the leadership of these committees, if there's anybody else that will testify that's been asked to testify. The Intelligence Committee is drafting up its recommendations. It will then go to the Judiciary Committee. I'm waiting to read all of those recommendations and what goes to judiciary. I go home at night and try to see what's happened at those hearings, like the American people have. But quite frankly, I've been getting a bill through on PFAS, I've been doing health care, I've been doing a lot of really important things to people in my district and haven't been able to watch.
But we hear that, Congresswoman, and some might think, well, this is multiple days of public hearings, hours-long hearings. Key witnesses put before the American people. Lawmakers had the opportunity to ask the questions they needed to ask. You have not come to a conclusion yet whether or not you believe the president has committed an impeachable offense?
I want to see what the Judiciary Committee is going to recommend. But let me tell you, I was more than disturbed by things that we heard. And by the way, I think that we need to look at what the president's behavior is right now. Why are we using such language that's taking this country and putting it in the gutter, period? Start there.
Many people agree with you, Congresswoman, but they'll say that's not impeachable.
That isn't impeachable.
Ken Starr joined us during the process yesterday. I was referencing back bad behavior. It was what I heard you talking about there.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Ken Starr joined us during our coverage yesterday, and in his legal opinion, the former independent counsel concluded this from what he has heard so far.
Clearly in his opening statement, a quid pro quo, and then he says later, well, the president said, I don't want anything, right? The President Zelensky should just do the right thing. You cannot convict. You shouldn't charge, but you can't convict a sitting president on the basis of conflicting and ambiguous evidence.
There is one Republican in the House who was in that room yesterday that perhaps is Democrats' best hope at getting to vote yes on impeachment, and that is Congressman Will Hurd, and he was not convinced over impeachment by what he heard. Here's the congressman.
I believe both statements were inappropriate, misguided foreign policy, and it's certainly not how the executive, current or in the future, should handle such a call. So where does this leave us? An impeachable offense should be compelling, overwhelmingly clear, and unambiguous, and it's not something to be rushed or taken lightly. I've not heard evidence proving the president committed bribery or extortion.
Here's the Atlantic headline. Following the hearing last night, Congresswoman, Will Hurd isn't sold. If Democrats can't persuade a moderate Republican like him to vote to impeach President Trump, they're unlikely to win over any Republicans at all. He's got nothing to lose, and he was not convinced by what he heard. Does it make sense for Democrats to proceed with this, knowing there's no Republican support for it yet?
Well, first of all, I don't know that there's no Republican support. I have talked to a number of people who are deeply disturbed. They are being very cautious in their words. Their arms are being broken, and I am very disturbed by the undue influence I'm seeing put on Republicans too. I was greatly disturbed by what I heard. It is very clear that the Ukrainian president was, the word bribe does work, was being told you're not going to get this aid that you need unless you agree to do this investigation and you do it publicly. And we do have evidence that money was held up. And then we also have evidence that they were trying to say that Ukraine tried to interfere in our elections, not Russia. One of the things that we do know, and one of the reasons why I have been fearful about impeachment, but I am getting madder and madder and think we've got to find a way we're going to step up to Russia, is that we do know there were Republican cabinet members that testified that Russia interfered in our last elections. Russia is trying to divide us as a country. That's documented in the Mueller report. Intelligence agency after intelligence agency around the world is saying that they're trying to destabilize democracies. We need a president that's going to protect the United States of America, not help destabilize democracies around the world.
Two more things. I want to get to the Pfizer report lastly here, but last question on this idea of censuring the president. Democrats considering possibly moving forward with that and stepping back from impeachment of the president. Is that a compromise that you would welcome or consider, Congresswoman?
I haven't been in a room where that's been discussed. I'm waiting to see what Adam Schiff's committee is recommending and what the Judiciary Committee is recommending. They have all the evidence. They have talked to people, and I respect their role in this process while I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, which is working on other issues for the American people.
And just to follow
I'm
up on
being
that,
methodical.
I keep hearing you say that you're going to wait for their recommendations, but have you decided for yourself, Congresswoman?
I am deeply disturbed by what I heard, but I think we have to work as an institution, and I want to see what they recommend. And by the way, I've talked to a number of Republicans who are deeply disturbed by what they've heard, trying to figure out what they're going to do, worried about what will happen to them if they go the way that they want to go. So this is a very complex time for this country.
It is indeed, and we appreciate your time this morning, Congresswoman. Come back soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
So Thanksgiving break now coming early for thousands of students in the state of Colorado. There's a potential outbreak causing a school district to cancel classes until the month of December. Alicia Cunha is following that. She's in Denver. Alicia, what's the story?
Hi, good morning, Bill. Well, the district superintendent says they have never had to shut it all down due to illness, but in recent weeks, hundreds and hundreds of students, teachers, and staff have all had to call in sick because they were becoming ill with similar symptoms. That is vomiting that comes on rapidly. The district has 22,000 students and close to 2,800 teachers and staff members. In a statement, the nursing coordinator for Mesa County Valley School District said, quote, "We are taking this highly unusual action because this virus is extremely contagious and spreading quickly across our schools. In addition, it appears that there is now a second related virus that is affecting students, some of whom have already been ill in recent weeks. The combination of the two has created an unprecedented spread of illness. County health officials say this is likely a norovirus outbreak, with the onset coming in the form of vomiting and now a fever for those unlucky enough to acquire the second form. The district superintendent said in a statement she understands this is an inconvenience, but, quote, "The rapid spread of illness has led us to the conclusion that closing all schools to allow our custodial crews and environmental health and safety team to perform an intense cleaning of the school buildings is the best course of action."
I kind of wondered if it was coming just because of all the health craziness going on at the schools around us, so we had kind of pre-gamed a bit, but I'm sure there's a lot of families who are put in some strange situations.
Google announcing restrictions on political ads this week. It follows the Twitter ban taking effect today, and now there's pressure on Facebook to take action as well. Byron York is the chief political correspondent for the Washington Examiner and Fox News contributor. And Byron, if you could just sort of set up what is happening here and the pressure that these companies are facing to make change.
Well, there is a general effort led mostly by Democrats to try to limit political speech on social media platforms. As you said, Twitter has banned
political ads altogether. Google has banned narrowly targeted ads from its site, and there's been a lot of pressure on Facebook to do something. Now, in October, Mark Zuckerberg, the head of Facebook, came to Washington, gave a speech basically in defense of freedom of speech on Facebook. He said Facebook would not fact-check political ads. He said the reason he wouldn't was that political ads are already highly scrutinized, they're heavily debated, and it's not up to a tech company to decide what is acceptable political speech in the country. That was not well received by a number of Democrats who want Facebook to take more action.
We all remember that. They make the case that this promotes disinformation, Democrats do. But now Facebook's facing growing pressure with the Twitter ban taking effect today. Will we see change from Facebook?
Well, it sounds like they are considering one move, which is to ban really narrowly targeted ads that target only a couple of hundred or a few hundred people. And Democrats especially say that allows a political party or a candidate to spread disinformation, but unseen by the larger public. So it's likely that at the very least, Facebook will sort of raise the threshold of how many people have to see an ad, making it more likely it will come under scrutiny.
I mean, here we are a year out from the next election, and this is going to play a key role. The way we use social media in our election process today has changed so much, so fast over just the last couple of years, Byron. So this is going to be something to watch. And Brad Parscale, who heads up the social media for the Trump campaign, he's been very vocal on all of this. What do you expect we see over the next few months?
Well, Parscale has opposed these moves. Listen, this all comes from the 2016 campaign. The Trump campaign made very, very effective use of social media, especially Facebook. I think Democrats always thought that they had an advantage on social media, and they did not in the 2016 campaign, and that made them very unhappy. And Brad Parscale, who ran that social media campaign in 2016, show you how important it is. He runs the whole campaign now.
Well, it appears the ball is in Facebook's court now. We'll see what they do next. Byron York, great to see you on this Friday morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandra.
Wild week on the Hill. Our headliner, Pam Bondi, knows all about it. We will talk to her in moments. And the A-Team's ready to tee off next. Ed Henry, Juan Williams, David Asman. The three amigos. Coming up next.
That's a threat. This first explosive new reports just out on the origins of the Russia probe. The brand new claims the FBI falsified a key document to launch secret surveillance of the Trump campaign. Welcome to a brand new hour of America's Newsroom. It is Friday morning. It's nice to see you all. I'm Sandra Smith. I have something for you.
Yes.
Mr. Bill Hemmer.
Yeah.
39 days left in 2019.
Is that right? How many shopping days is that?
Exactly.
Good morning to you, Smitty. I'm Bill Hemmer. Good morning. On a Friday, new information coming ahead of a long-anticipated report. That report will be made public in about 2.5 weeks, and it comes right as the impeachment hearing hits a fever pitch. Did the FBI allegedly abuse its power to target former Trump campaign aide Carter Page?
They have been falsifying documents and providing false testimony in the courts of law for years now.
This was spying on my campaign, something that has never been done in the history of our country. This was an overthrow attempt at the presidency. They tried to overthrow the presidency. This is a disgrace. But I'm not surprised to see it. It's just starting to come up. I think this is nothing compared to what you'll see over the next couple of weeks.
These media outlets
people are sick.
President Trump with our colleagues at Fox and Friends earlier today. In moments, we'll get brand new reaction from the White House's advisor on impeachment with a big week. Kim Bondi is standing by for that. But first, Mike Emanuel joins us live from the Hill. Mike, good morning to you on a Friday. How are you?
Good morning, Mike.
Bill, Sandra, good morning to you. Lawmakers are gone for the next 10 days or so, and then we will see about next steps in this impeachment probe. It's been a marathon week here on Capitol Hill. 3 long days of testimony from 9 different witnesses, a range of officials, past and present, either working on Ukraine from a foreign policy perspective or at the National Security Council or State Department. The final witnesses potentially for open hearings in the Intelligence Committee, Fiona Hill and David Holmes. She was a Russia expert at the National Security Council, while he is an official at the U.S. Embassy in Ukraine. Then it was time for what sounded like Chairman Adam Schiff's closing argument.
In my view, there is nothing more dangerous than an unethical president who believes they are above the law. And I would just say to people watching here at home and around the world, in the words of my great colleague, we are better than that. Adjourned.
If the Intelligence Committee is done, they will craft a report and send it on to the Judiciary Committee, where potential articles of impeachment would be crafted. Democratic sources tell Fox News potential articles are bribery, contempt of Congress, obstruction of justice, and abuse of power. GOP lawmakers say President Trump has not gotten a fair shake.
Despite this incredibly partisan, unfair process, Republicans control the Senate, and I am hopeful that they will run a fair process, call Adam Schiff, call the whistleblower, and call Hunter Biden to actually get to the facts and really focus on the corruption.
Some Republicans suggest Democrats may not ultimately have the votes to impeach. We'll see about that when lawmakers return from the Thanksgiving break.
Thank you,
Bill,
sir.
Sandra?
Mike Emanuel, nice to see you. Thank you from the Hill.
Mike, let's bring in our headliner, Pam Bondi, White House advisor on impeachment. Pam, good morning to you. Thank you for being here.
Good morning.
So,
Good morning.
How is the White House responding to what was 3 long days of this impeachment process in those hearings this week?
Well, it was a bunch of nothing, and it was a sham. And, Sandra, we say that, but let me explain why. President Trump, then candidate Trump, has always run on a strong platform of anti-corruption, not only domestically, but also abroad. And we all know that Ukraine had incredible corruption. We get President Zelensky elected. He promised he was going to be an anti-corruption president, but he was untested. Parliament wasn't even seated until later, much later. So we had to see what President Zelensky was going to do. What did he do? He came in and started fulfilling those promises. He got rid of the prosecutor general, put a good one in place. He got rid of the immunity that Parliament was given, and he continued to do good things and start proving himself. At the same time, what are we doing? We're in, reported widely, talks with the Taliban on peace talks that eventually broke down, handling many, many world events. President Trump said there was no quid pro quo. President Zelensky said he was not pressured. In fact, an investigation was never even opened, and $400 million in relief, lethal aid, not only just blanket aid, what President Obama did, but lethal aid was given to the Ukraine. That's it. That's the end of story.
Okay, Pam, let's go through a few things. This meeting at the White House yesterday, did you attend that meeting where the senators came down?
It's been reported, yes, I was in the meeting, but I'm not going to talk about any specifics that happened in the meeting with the Senate.
So what the president said earlier today is that I want a trial. And now he said in the same answer they should never, ever impeach. But what can you tell us about his desire to have a trial if he believes it ultimately clears him? Or why would he make that comment or welcome that?
Well, the president, of course, he wants a trial because we've been in a sham court. Weeks of private testimony is how all this started in a bunker where Republicans weren't even allowed in the door. That's how this gets started. Then they cherry pick certain parts of testimony to put in the public hearing only after they were pressured by Congress to do so. And the president has not even been afforded any rights. They're saying come in here and prove your innocence. That's outrageous in the world in which we live that this is happening. So of course the president wants to hear from Adam Schiff. After everything he did, he should be very nervous. Hunter Biden, Joe Biden, all these people, Burisma, the corporation, all of these people to show President Trump did nothing wrong. He's very adamant about that. We're very adamant about that. There is nothing there.
So how do you prepare
and that's
for it?
why
How do you prepare for it, though, Pam? Because obviously what you're doing is you're telling us that you're preparing for a trial. You're not giving us specifics of the meeting yesterday, but Fox News has learned that the House Judiciary could drop 4 articles of impeachment as soon as early next month. You have to prepare for that. What is the White House doing right now to do that?
Well, it's pretty easy when the president's innocent. The president did nothing wrong. And Sandra, I'm glad you brought that up because you said earlier bribery. Bribery, first of all, bribery doesn't even apply here. That's not the definition of bribery. But what was it before? They changed the term because they used a focus group. The Democrats used a focus group, and quid pro quo didn't poll well. Bribery sounded better. It sounded tougher, so now they switched to bribery. This is outrageous in our country that this is happening to a sitting president.
A specific question,
it really
Pam,
is.
on Ambassador Sondland. Take you back to the testimony of yesterday. This is David Holmes now on Sondland and the Trump call in Kiev.
In particular, I asked Ambassador Sondland if it was true that the president did not give an expletive about Ukraine. Ambassador Sondland agreed that the president did not give an expletive about Ukraine. I asked why not. Ambassador Sondland stated that the president only cares about big stuff. I noted there was big stuff going on in Ukraine, like a war with Russia. And Ambassador Sondland replied that he meant big stuff that benefits the president, like the Biden investigation that Mr. Giuliani was pushing.
I want to ask you about that. And also, what Sondland said the day prior was that there was quid pro quo as it related to a meeting, not aid, but as a meeting at the White House. How do you respond to that?
Well, first of all, that's his opinion, and the guy that you just heard testify is saying he eavesdropped on a phone call that Sondland had in a restaurant overseas, a very short phone call with the President of the United States. So it's hearsay upon hearsay upon hearsay. He's hearing things. Sondland testified about that. What did Sondland say ultimately? Sondland said, the president said, I don't want anything. There is no quid pro quo. What does our president want? What I started off with today. He wants to fight corruption, not only here, but abroad. Before we release money to the Ukraine, did you know we have to certify that it's not going for corruption, that it's not going to corrupt places?
One of the questions was, what was Rudy Giuliani's involvement there? Because we heard one of the witnesses yesterday say that Sondland, Ambassador Sondland, was doing a political errand for the president. Sondland testified that he was carrying out orders from the president and Rudy Giuliani. So this was put to the president this morning on that interview on Fox about Rudy Giuliani and his involvement in all those dealings in Ukraine, and here was his response.
Rudy Giuliani is a very legendary figure in our country. Rudy was the U.S. attorney. He also worked at the Justice Department. Believe me, this kind of crap wouldn't have happened in the Justice Department if Rudy Giuliani was the attorney general, just like I believe Bill Barr will straighten it out. When you're dealing with a corrupt country, if Rudy Giuliani, he's got credentials because of his reputation. When Rudy Giuliani goes there and you hear it's a corrupt country, I mean, it means a lot.
So, Pam, what was his role there, Rudy Giuliani?
Well, Rudy Giuliani, we know, is the president's personal attorney. The president just spoke to that issue. You know, there is corruption. Rudy Giuliani was your U.S. attorney in New York, and he was one of the toughest U.S. attorneys fighting corruption and in our country and out of our country. And Rudy is the president's personal attorney.
What was his involvement in Ukraine policy?
The president just spoke to that. He's his personal attorney. The president of the United States runs foreign policy. And by the way, going back to Sondland, he kept saying, I presume, I assume, I think
Pam, but some people hear you answering that he's the president's personal attorney, but the question was, what was his involvement in U.S.-Ukraine foreign policy?
The President of the United States sets foreign policy, not Sondland, not anyone else. There were career officials out there who did not like the president's tough stance. The president campaigned on this. The president will continue to fight corruption. This is coming from the President of the United States, that he is against corruption domestically and abroad, from candidate Trump even before he was elected. And you know what? If he didn't do that, he wouldn't be doing his job. It's his duty to fight corruption, especially if we're going to give $400 million of lethal aid, not just blanket aid, lethal aid to the Ukraine. We had to be sure that that president, Zelensky, who's proven himself now to be a pretty darn good president, he's fighting corruption within the Ukraine, before we release that money to the country. It's that simple.
Okay.
That's all that happened. We have the president saying there